It started like any other day in court, until it didn't. Day 5 of the trial brought a shift in energy, a tension that no one could ignore. The usual rhythm of legal proceedings, measured pacing, quiet murmurs between attorneys, and the occasional shuffle of paperwork was replaced by something heavier, more electric. Reporters arrived early. Some, even before security, had opened the doors to the public gallery. Courtroom sketch artists lined the back wall, pencils sharpened and notepads ready, sensing they were about to capture a moment history would remember. Jurors sat up straighter than usual, eyes darting between Cassie's seat and the defense table, already aware that today wouldn't be just another round of procedural testimony. The gallery packed tighter than usual, with new faces squeezed into every available space. Press, fans, critics, and curious onlookers all shoulder to shoulder, phones silenced, eyes locked on the witness stand. Something was coming, something big. And when Cassie Ventura walked back into the courtroom, her posture calm but her expression unreadable, everyone knew it wasn't just another testimony. It was the moment everything would change. The kind of moment that rewrites headlines, shifts public perception, and forces even the most skeptical observer to lean in and listen closely. This wasn't going to be just another day in court. This was the day the truth began to surface. For months, rumors had swirled about what went on inside Diddy's Los Angeles mansion. Reddit threads speculated. Tabloids joked. Paparazzi snapped photos of comings and goings. But no one had confirmed anything until now. The courtroom was silent as the question cut through the air. "Miss Ventura, have you ever been beneath the property, inside the tunnel?" Cassie paused, just for a moment, but it was enough to make the tension in the room feel unbearable. Then she answered, her voice steady but low. "Yes." That single word sent shockwaves through the courtroom like an electric current. Gasps were stifled. Reporters scribbled faster. Jurors leaned forward. Cameras weren't allowed, but every eye was watching. That one syllable shattered the illusion of celebrity glamour and peeled back the layers of secrecy surrounding one of music's most powerful and elusive figures. What followed was more than just testimony, it was a revelation. She described how the entrance to the underground passage was cleverly disguised behind dense foliage near the pool area, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. It looked less like a secret hideout and more like something out of a spy movie, an elaborate illusion meant to blend into the landscape of luxury. Hidden beneath leaves and vines, the hatch was flush with the ground, camouflaged so well that even guests at his lavish parties might have walked right past it without a second thought. But once inside, the fantasy ended, and reality got darker. Much darker. The air grew colder as she descended. Concrete stairs led down into the earth, each step echoing in the tight space. Steel doors blocked the way at intervals, locked with keypads or biometric scanners. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across the walls. As she walked deeper, the disorientation set in, twisting hallways with no windows, no natural light, and absolutely no cell service. There was no sense of direction, no way to tell how far underground they had gone. Cassie admitted she had lost track of time and space. This wasn't just a safe room or a panic bunker built for emergencies. It was something else entirely, something designed not for escape, but for entrapment. Inside the first chamber, the atmosphere shifted again. Red lights glowed ominously from recessed fixtures, casting long shadows across the floor. Surveillance cameras watched from every corner, blinking silently like mechanical eyes. Leather furniture was arranged in a strange symmetry, sober, clinical, and cold. Mirrors covered the ceiling and parts of the floor, distorting movement and making it impossible to ignore being observed. The padded walls absorbed sound, muting voices and footsteps alike, creating an eerie silence broken only by the occasional buzz of unseen electronics. Shelves lined one side of the room, neatly organized with unsettling precision. Masks in various styles, ropes coiled like sleeping snakes, bottles of oils, and neatly folded latex outfits in black and red. A rack of clothing sat untouched, as if waiting for someone to wear them. None of it felt like play. None of it resembled fun or fantasy. It felt calculated. It felt like control. like a stage set not for pleasure, but for power. And in the middle of it all stood two women, one seated silently on a couch, motionless, staring blankly ahead. The other stood near a tripod-mounted camera, adjusting the lens with slow, deliberate movements. They didn't speak. They didn't acknowledge Cassie's presence. They didn't react at all. Diddy referred to them casually, calling them performers, as if this were some avant-garde art installation rather than a hidden world buried beneath his estate. Cassie didn't ask questions. She didn't want to know who they were, why they were there, or what their role was. She could feel the weight of the place pressing down on her, both physically and emotionally. The longer she stayed, the more certain she became this wasn't meant for outsiders. It wasn't built for guests. It was built for something else. Something private. Something dangerous. But she saw more, much more, than just that first unsettling room. As she moved deeper into the underground complex, Cassie described 3 additional chambers, each more disturbing than the last. The first was dimly lit, with heavy chains bolted to the concrete walls and a wooden bench positioned in the exact center. It wasn't a place for comfort or rest. It felt like a place of restraint, of punishment. The second room contained a full-sized bed, and next to it, a strange digital panel mounted on the wall. She couldn't tell what it controlled, but the presence of technology in such a cold, oppressive space made her stomach turn. The third room was the most unnerving of all, completely empty except for a single chair and a small metal box filled with wires and cables. No furniture, no decoration, just a chair and a box of wires, like it was waiting for something or someone. And then came the line that made her blood run cold. "This is where I bring the ones I own." Those words echoed off the stone walls, chilling her to the core. She didn't ask what he meant. She didn't want to know. What she did hear, though, was even more unsettling, muffled sounds coming from behind one of the closed doors. Not music, not laughter, but distorted voices, almost like they were being filtered through some kind of speaker system. Were people inside? Was someone watching? Recording? She never found out. And honestly, she didn't want to. She left that night shaking uncontrollably, her clothes soaked in the strange, lingering smell of that place, a mix of disinfectant, sweat, and something else she couldn't quite name. She knew in that moment that she'd never be able to forget what she had seen. No matter how hard she tried, those images would stay burned into her memory forever. And yet, as terrifying as the tunnel had been, it was just the beginning. Because what happened above ground was no less disturbing, and in many ways, even harder to escape. In court, under oath, Cassie gave a harrowing explanation of what a freak-off really meant. It wasn't just about sex. It was about control, manipulation, and carefully orchestrated events designed to strip away any sense of autonomy. These weren't spontaneous nights of passion. They were planned like business meetings. Some were scheduled weeks in advance, with specific instructions sent via text. Roles were assigned. Outfits were required. Masks were often mandatory. And drugs? They were always part of the equation. Opiates, MDMA, benzos. Pills she never asked for, never agreed to take, but somehow always ended up consuming anyway. Her consent was blurred, buried beneath layers of substances that made her forget entire nights. She remembered begging him to delete videos, clips she once saw briefly on his laptop without his knowledge. In them, she appeared disoriented, detached, surrounded by men she didn't recognize. He laughed when she asked him to erase them. "I keep everything for leverage," he told her, like it was nothing. Like she was nothing. Her body bore the physical scars of his control. Bruises that came from being pushed during arguments. Blood drawn after he kicked her hard in the back when he read a text from someone he suspected of getting too close to her. Once, he threw her off a boat in the Caribbean, screaming at her that she was dead weight. She swam to shore, exhausted and traumatized, but still went back to him. Not because she wanted to, not because she forgave him, but because she felt trapped, like there was no way out. She believed no one would believe her. After all, he was Diddy, untouchable, powerful, famous. Who would side with her? The breaking point came the night before her movie premiere, a moment that should have been about pride, joy, and celebration. Cassie had worked hard for this milestone, and she was ready to embrace the spotlight. She wanted dinner, laughter, maybe a toast to the future. But Diddy had other plans. He didn't want to celebrate love or success. He wanted control. He wanted a freak-off. And he wasn't going to take no for an answer. Against every instinct in her body, Cassie gave in. Not because she wanted to, but because saying no meant more than just disappointment. It meant tension, manipulation, and emotional warfare. So she relented, hoping it would be quick, hoping it wouldn't leave another mark on her spirit. She was driven to the Intercontinental Hotel under the pretense of privacy, but when she arrived, the scene was already set. Candles flickering, cameras rolling, unfamiliar faces waiting. 2 masked women, a male dancer, music pulsing in the background. This wasn't intimacy. It was performance, and she was expected to play her part. She was handed a pill and told it would help her relax. She took it, not realizing it would erase entire hours from her memory. The next thing she knew, she woke up alone, drenched in sweat, disoriented and terrified. Her phone buzzed with a message from him. Asterisk, you were amazing. I'm proud. Asterisk, that's when the truth hit her like a tidal wave. She hadn't just lost another night. She had lost herself completely. There were bruises under her dress. Physical reminders of what she couldn't remember. Words she never agreed to say caught on camera. Actions she couldn't recall taking. And worst of all, the crushing realization that she had no power over her own life, not while he still held the strings. That night became the final straw in a decade-long cycle of manipulation, fear, and submission. The next morning, she packed her bag without telling anyone. She boarded a plane alone, leaving behind the mansion, the tunnels, the parties, and the pain. For the first time in years, she breathed freely, like a prisoner who had finally found the key. But silence doesn't last forever. In fact, sometimes it explodes into something louder than words. Cassie's decision to file a civil lawsuit sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. It wasn't about money or revenge. It was about reclaiming her story, her voice, and her dignity. And once the dam broke, others followed. Women who had stayed quiet for years began to speak out, sharing anonymous accounts, new accusations, and harrowing experiences. Some had names. Most did not. But their stories painted a chilling picture of a world hidden behind fame, fortune, and fear. Soon after, federal agents descended on Diddy's properties. The FBI launched raids targeting potential evidence related to coercion, trafficking, and illegal activity. What they uncovered remains under wraps, but rumors spread like wildfire. Talk of underground structures, secret recordings, and files that could change everything. Authorities aren't talking, but the public is listening, watching, waiting. Because one thing is clear, the truth has started to surface, and it's darker than anyone imagined. Cassie didn't testify just for herself. She stepped into that courtroom knowing full well the cost of reliving trauma, facing scrutiny, and risking backlash. But she did it so others wouldn't have to stay silent. So the women who disappeared into the darkness of that house wouldn't be forgotten. So people would finally understand what happens when unchecked power collides with secrecy, and why it takes someone extraordinary to tear the lid off a hidden world. Because the real story isn't just about tunnels or wild parties. It's not just about drugs, masks, or luxury lifestyles. At its core, this is a story about control. About how one person can hold another hostage, not with chains, but with fear, dependency, and isolation. It's about the cost of silence, the years lost, the memories buried, the lives altered. And most importantly, it's about the courage it takes to break that silence, to stand up and to say, no more. Cassie Ventura didn't just tell her story. She shattered a legacy of silence. And in doing so, she gave others permission to do the same.